journey with me to discover the truth about God's chosen people and the church's final destiny. Maybe you know that something within the church isn't right. Maybe you feel a certain discontent when you walk into church on a Sunday, or when you see how your city remains indifferent to salvation. Maybe you privately despair over the weakened and compromised state of Western believers, and you wonder if there's a solution. There is hope, and I can show you the way. First, though, I need to warn you. What you will learn as we travel down this path may change your life forever. It may disturb your understanding of the church and evermore alter your grasp of what the gospel is truly about. It could start you on a journey that you have not been anticipating, a journey that could have great consequence for you. This is your choice, and your choice alone.
I'm recording too. Sounded pretty good. Welcome.
Welcome to Boys Bible Study. This podcast came to me in a dream in the 80s. I've spent the past 30 years of my life trying to realize what this dream was trying to tell me.
Yeah, this is Boys Bible Study. We will finally be the podcast to bring back the Lion of Judah. Bring him back. Bring him back. Ooh, I'm the Lion of Judah. Welcome back to Boys Bible Study. This is a special bonus episode. Ash here with my co-hosts
Scott
and Julian.
Yeah, we're very excited to present to you. We say this from time to time, but it doesn't stop being true. One of the most insane movies we've ever watched for the show.
Every like 2 months, I feel like we find a movie. 2 or 3 months, we find a movie that really reminds me personally of why we watch this stuff. This is one of them.
Yeah, there's really not an end, not just to Christian content, but also to new forms of presenting information.
Yes.
Completely new styles of film. I have never seen and will never see a film that looks like this, presents information the way this does.
This movie feels like if Encarta Mind Maze was trying to kill you.
If Encarta Mind Maze was trying to kill you, and by you I mean someone who lives in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, exactly.
This is just really
very coincidental
sinister
timing that we found this movie, but
we didn't know.
So very appropriate for the current time.
And I genuinely have not seen a movie that was ostensibly trying to appeal to me, but was so overtly sinister that it really was like, it was basically like if Slender Man was right about to kill you and had backed you into the corner of a room, but before he killed you, he monologued for an hour to you about how we have to respect the nation of Israel.
Yeah.
That was sort of like what watching this movie felt like to me. It was so scary. It was like prey being monologued to by a predator before the kill that will wipe you out of existence forever. So crazy.
Yeah, it was accidentally a great follow-up to an Ormond movie.
Yes, it was. The Ormond movies, which are very sinister in a way, but their tone is more like, I'm going to show you something crazy, because they're like carnival people. So they have that great way of selling you the excitement, the in the next room, you're going to see some real freaks. This movie was like, it was like the guy from Lost Highway telling you he's in your house.
Yeah.
Currently.
Yeah.
And again, that you should support Israel for this reason. It was like if the weird guy from Lost Highway was a mega Zionist and made a movie. That's sort of what this movie was like. And this movie is called Let the Lion Roar, which when we decided we were going to do it, I had no idea even what we were in store for.
We picked this solely on the fact that there was a still of Kevin Sorbo in like a Party City, like a Spirit Halloween beard.
Yeah, if you went to Spirit Halloween and got the costume that was called Marco Polo,
Yes.
that was like how Kevin Sorbo was dressed for this movie. And we just saw the screenshot of like him smiling with the big fake like Arabic beard.
Yeah.
And we were like, sold. Say no more.
Did not realize he was going to spend 20 minutes just saying like the most vile anti-Semitic stuff in service of like the complete opposite, like super pro-Zionist. It was crazy. There was like literally no middle ground in this.
No.
It was just from one extreme to the other.
Right, because it was just, as we're about to reveal, it was distinctly from a Christian perspective. This is a movie made by Christians, and ostensibly about, Kevin Sorbo plays John Calvin, the famous Christian reformer.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was expecting a movie about Calvin. I think we all were. And we got one, but not nearly in the way that we thought we were going to
Yeah.
get. I mean, this movie is... I texted the group chat during my watch late last night. I texted you guys like can't wait till you figure out what this movie is really about. Because it took a couple minutes getting in, but all of a sudden I was like, this is what this movie is about? And then we were just there for the rest of the movie. Remarkable.
Would you say this is like an anti-Lutheran piece? Or it seemed like it really had... It felt similar to the way that like people nowadays, like sometimes left-leaning people nowadays will like rip on Reagan. And it's like the dude's been dead for almost 30 years.
Yeah.
It's like we're way past that. That's like kind of felt what it felt like to me, like the way this guy was just like talking about shit, like people hating Jews like 500 years ago.
Right.
It's like people still hate Jews today, dude.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I hope
think
we're
that,
around in 500 years to still hate on Reagan.
Yeah, that is true.
And the people making a podcast about our podcast will go, wow, they were saying all the shit about Reagan. He's been dead for 500 years. But I mean, I think that this film had the same view of Martin Luther that it did about John Calvin, both historical figures that were given a voice in this film. And it was basically, my belief was that this film was expressing admiration for the two figures, except in the case of how they felt about the Jews, which that led to like the central thesis of the film, which was that like, the anti-Semitism of the founders of Protestantism is like what has prevented it from being a powerful religion. But I didn't necessarily think the whole film was anti-Luther. I mean, the same criticism was applied to John Calvin.
True, yeah.
They seem to have a positive take to open with them and being like, these were enlightened guys who like were really cared about the direction of the church and about following the Bible.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's a turn where it's like, and then they got tired of it and the Jews wouldn't do things the way they wanted. And so they hated the Jews.
Yeah. Let's get there. Let's talk about this film, because the first thing to point out is that this entire documentary, which I wrote in my notes, at first it had the look of like film substitute teacher makes you watch in history class or whatever. We start watching this, and first he starts talking about this dream that he had, and I was like, where is he going with this?
So who is this guy?
That's a good question.
Derek Frank. Is that right?
I believe so.
And this was directed by, I found his daughter, Vanessa Frank. I was very concerned at the beginning because I thought, when I looked it up, I thought it was his wife.
Yeah.
But he has pictures of himself with his wife on his website.
Yeah, and she's an old ass.
Yeah, fuck her. No, it's it's a family affair. Derek Frank, our guide, our Dante on our journey into the 8 rings of Zionism, and directed by his daughter Vanessa, who I sent you guys that weird. Her only photos on IMDb are just her with Eric Roberts Stephen Baldwin and separate photos of her with Eric Roberts, Stephen Baldwin, and Kevin Sorbo, obviously on the set of this movie.
Awesome.
And this movie's entirely shot on. I think it's important to lay out the visual style of this movie because it is like 100% shot on green screen, almost entirely just one person at a time talking to you, until you have like a pack of 9 Holocaust victims speaking directly to you. I think that's about it. Yeah, it felt very like Scientology or like The Secret. When we watched The Secret, It was just like people just talking directly at you.
But with a weird green screen mystical background.
Yeah.
Which was the case with much of this film.
And those painting transitions.
Right. That too, whenever we go into like a historical scene, Derek walks up to a like seemingly like CGI generated painting that's like a still from whatever you're about to watch with like a weird Photoshop oil painting effect on, which we got to figure out a way to get an oil, like a fake oil painting of Kevin Sorbo and his outfit in this. And the weirdest thing is he like taps on the painting to make it play, which makes me think at one point maybe it was supposed to be something with like a button and then they just changed it. Yeah, did you guys notice that? He would like press on the frame of the painting.
Yeah.
And then it would start playing.
It didn't really make any sense.
Yeah, it did not.
So bizarre.
Unnecessary detail.
Yeah. Anyways, that's our scene.
But, he starts talking. He doesn't really introduce himself.
No.
And he's just looking dead at you. And he's just like, and there was a dream I had. I was in an ancient Greek cathedral, and there were people with headphones on.
He doesn't say who he is. He's dressed in like a historical outfit outside of like a cathedral from like a fucking Diablo 1 cutscene. And he just immediately starts talking to you about like a dream I thought he was supposed to be Calvin or like...
Yeah, I mean, of course.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, but no, he was describing a dream that he had in real life. Yeah, about this cathedral where everybody... And he was like, I could tell that this was being spoken to an international audience because they all had... headphones on that were translating what the speech was. It was just like, we say this a lot, but it was like fucking Uber driver core. It was like the most fucking everything that is like awful about someone describing a dream to you was in this.
I saw an impressive building with an imposing Greek-style entrance with pillars and steps and a paved courtyard in front of it. People were going in and coming out of it dressed in medieval clothing. The picture then flipped to inside the building, where a modern-day conference was in process. I guessed it was international, as many people were wearing headphones. And each time, the vision ended with the same words.
Complete the Reformation.
Except, we were watching it by choice and it was happening in a movie.
Yeah.
And the reveal is that later in this man's travels, he was in the city of Geneva, Switzerland.
Yep.
And he stopped dead in his tracks when he encountered this exact cathedral from his dream from years previous that haunted him. In this dream, there were people saying to him, finish the Reformation.
Right.
Which is like, what kind of fucking gay ass dreams are you having if you are so lost in the sauce as this guy that there's people telling you to finish the Reformation? Nevertheless, he connected that this dream was in fact a religious message, and it may have had something to do with the historical figure of John Calvin, who led the Reformation movement in Geneva when he was the governor of Geneva in the 1500s.
Yep. Back when it was called the stinkiest city in all Europe.
He likes that detail.
Previously, it was known as the stinkiest city in all Europe,
I really liked that detail. I just
That's
imagine
funny.
John Calvin taking his shoes off and, and wiggling his big toes around, and there's like little stink lines emanating from them. That's Geneva. Yeah.
Using the
this
Geneva Bible, I assume, because it would have been
I
around
would
at the time,
assume.
mid 1500s.
I would assume so. Yeah, this all had to be connected. Mind you, explicating this film requires some historical knowledge that we basically don't have other than watching this film, which I'm sure was a very accurate piece of historical knowledge. So we might not get every detail quite right, but John Calvin, I've fortunately opened his Wikipedia page. He reformed Christianity. He reformed a system of Christian theology later called Calvinism.
Okay.
And this film is about Protestant reformers. It first of all, it talks about how Calvin and his predecessor, Martin Luther, my guy, founder of the Lutherans, my favorite religion, the one I was raised in. It talks about how the Catholic Church at the time was very oppressive on the people. And these two men, in slightly different times and places, I believe Luther was first, and they did a lot. They were, revolutionary in their philosophical thinking. They rebelled against the church, and they created systems of faith that to some were, uplifting, less oppressive. Mr. Frank talks about how the Catholic Church was doing many corrupt things, such as selling indulgences, which most of us know are when basically you pay the church to get out of purgatory or to get into heaven, which is very corrupt. You
Get your family out of purgatory.
Exactly. Yeah, just a fundraiser for the church, preying on the superstitions of probably undereducated people. Not good. Catholics are always have something up their sleeve,
Can't trust them.
No. And so we get the first act of this film is like a look mostly positive until a big reveal at Martin Luther and at John Calvin.
Yeah.
Who are very, very funny. I enjoyed watching them.
Okay. What do you think? All right. So Martin Luther, he's got those battle angel Alita eyes. Do you think that he did
Battle
he
Angel
look,
Martin.
He looked like he had some sort of like face, like cartoon Pixar face filter on him.
It's possible.
His eyes were huge.
It's like for some people they might have used costuming. For some people they used like weird filters and like CGI. Now this guy wasn't playing Martin Luther, but did any of you catch the heartbreaker of Christian film, the best leading man we got, Ben Davies, playing like a random European guy? Ben Davies he was the lead in Jingle Smells, and he's he's like hot, and he was in the Columbine movie as well.
Yes.
And he plays just like a random European guy, and there's like really bad editing where he's like staring at the camera for like 10 seconds before his line begins.
Yes, I do
It's really
remember that.
funny.
There were a lot of heavy hitters in this film,
There really are.
and they went off with their accents.
They sure did.
Stephen Baldwin doing a weird European accent in, again, a fake beard.
Lord, there could never be expiation for the Jews, you see. God has always hated them. They are assassins of Christ. Christians should always hate the Jews.
I'm pretty sure Eric Roberts, I could tell because he had like striking blue eyes. I think that he was just like so done up. It was hard to tell. And he was also speaking in a crazy accent.
Augustine of Hippo, a bishop known as one of the greatest Christian thinkers of all time, said,
The Jews were the sons of God, but now they are the sons of Satan.
I didn't recognize him.
But I
at
think
all.
the worst one was, or the best one was definitely Kevin Sorbo as Calvin. I wrote down exception and salvation.
Chapter 2, Ephesians, verse 8 says, It is by grace you have been saved through faith. There is no exception.
Who was Martin Luther? Was that Stephen Baldwin?
No, Martin Luther was the guy with the big eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
Stephen Baldwin he was just some. I mean, they were like fucking one after the other, historical figure carrying like a staff with a fucking like a plastic staff.
Yeah.
Just lining them up, 30 minutes for each guy, or maybe an hour,
Yeah.
half hour of costuming and makeup, half hour of shooting. You're done.
This was like, I think another reason this felt so like Scientology coded was because it would just like bombard you with people who like were treated as if they were important and what they had to say was important. So like, I feel like the trick is to sort of like overwhelm you to the point where you're just like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to know who this guy is.
Yeah.
So I better like not ask any questions.
Yeah.
Lest I be taken for a fool. Hence the reason why he just shows up. Fucking Derek Frank just shows up at the beginning and fucking just starts talking to you about his very important dream
I had
he
a
had.
dream long ago.
I definitely, it was probably like halfway through that I just gave up. I was like, I guess I just don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it seemed like it was supposed to be like, oh, this is Calvin. Oh no, who is this? Oh, it's just some guy.
Yeah, I thought he was going to give me a fucking quest.
The eighth line of, I'm looking at my notes. The eighth line is, who is this guy and why is he talking? I could not figure it out. This was like beyond 5 minutes into the movie, you know.
When I was on Birthright in Israel, of all place, doing my duties, we had to go to like a weird seminar before we went out to dinner where this person just showed up. And it was like in the lobby of a hotel room. And this guy just came in front. We were like, oh, be there. You have to come to this one. Like, we're all gathered around. And this guy just shows up and starts talking to us about moving to Israel and like job opportunities and stuff. And my friend who was like also just not buying into the bullshit, just won the free trip. Yeah. Like 10 minutes into this guy's speech, he just goes, who are you? Like, you just came up here and started talking to us. And he was like, taken aside and said if he acted up like that again, they were going to send him home early.
Wow.
And the guy never explained who he was.
Whoa.
It was so fucking crazy.
Excuse me.
Sid
who
Roth.
are you?
Yeah.
I think one thing I've learned about Israel is that, yeah, people will just start talking to you, like they'll start delivering their NPC lines, and you won't. They expect, like, they think that like their title card is appearing while they're talking.
Yeah.
That's something I learned about Israel.
It seems like Israel is just like, it's almost like Harry Potter stuff. It's like real life Harry Potter, where in the sense that like people so desperately want magic in this world that they're just like, I don't really know any Jewish people, but I know there's like a country full of Jewish people, and they're kind of like different white people,
right?
So there must be something special about them, and they've been around forever. So I mean, if a Jewish person says something, it must be significant.
I mean, that's how I operate, basically.
Yeah, and that's why y'all are subscribed to our bonus feed here.
I wrote in my notes because we're looking at Martin Luther. He was scandalized by indulgences, so he did the 95 Theses like a boss. That's what I wrote in my notes. And then the film says Martin Luther went viral. His 95 Theses went viral.
He began to write more, and his message quickly went viral. Thanks to the newly invented printing press, his writings were rapidly circulated.
And it had to do with the printing press, mass-produced media. I guess a lot of people had access to these fucking boring-ass theses. But this material ended up converting a lawyer in Paris called John Calvin, a.k.a. Kevin Sorbo. And then the film says, I'm not even kidding, in 1536, God incidents caused Calvin to go through Geneva, and the Genevans asked him to govern.
In 1536, in what can only be described as a God incidence, Calvin's travels were diverted through Geneva. The citizens had just evicted the Catholic authorities, which had left them leaderless, but open to being reformed.
So he made up the word God incidence, which is a coincidence that has to do with God. So I replay.
That is an affront. That is an affront to my religion
of coincidences. I was going to ask you what you think of
That's
God
one of the
incidences.
most sacrilegious things I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's sacrilegious both to Christians and to coincidence havers.
Yeah, that is repulsive to me.
I like replayed that. I was like, his what now? And it was like in 1536, God incidents.
Yeah.
Like, shut the fuck up.
Damn.
Shut up. Calvin was so cool that the people of Geneva asked him to govern. But then this is when Mr. Frank starts to reveal the dark side of the Reformation. Okay, so we get the idea that, David Frank, he's a Protestant, right? So he supports the Reformation of the Catholic Church, but there's a problem. He's hinting to this failure of the Reformation. He had this dream of voices telling him to complete the Reformation. If John Calvin was so amazing, if Martin Luther was so amazing, why could they not fully reform the church? And he's been talking this whole time about some conspiracy. In the beginning, he's like, the conspiracy that Satan brought on the earth. And like, what are you talking about? And it turns out that this conspiracy, the problem at the heart of Protestantism, is anti-Semitism. Yeah. They hate the Jews. There's then a 20-minute sequence that is just clips of people in various historical robes saying horrible things about Jews.
I have had much conversation with many Jews. I have never seen either a drop of piety or a grain of truth or ingenuousness. No, I have never seen common sense in any Jew.
I started thinking, like, Sorbo is always playing the villain.
Right.
And part of me thinks that, like, maybe he, like, secretly relates to this stuff. Because, he wasn't always, like, a Christian film actor. And he kind of just says whatever's, like, put in front of him.
Yeah,
as evidenced by our cameo for Trans Regret Snoopy.
Yeah, he'll say anything.
But I was kind of like, maybe he, like, likes to say this stuff, and he was, like, he's looking for a reason to, like...
That's funny.
Get this out.
Yeah, he gets off on saying it because it's for the purpose of a spiritual project, but he still gets to say all the evil shit.
Yeah,
at the camera. Mm-hmm. There's just like so many clips. Like, honestly, a funny edit of this film would just be out of context clips of people in historical dress saying horrible things about the Jews.
Yes.
There's literally just clip after clip of people saying. I wrote in my note, I will not eat with the Jews.
I will not eat with the Jews.
Stephen Baldwin saying God hates the Jews. Christians should hate the Jews.
I wrote in my notes, this movie is a funny compilation of people in hats looking directly at the camera and saying anti-Semitic things.
So funny.
The Jews are the sons of Satan.
So good. So good.
For like a long time, I was like, when does this stop? There's so many clips. I mean, that's the point. He's like trying to make a point. But it's like they introduced Martin Luther. I'm like, okay, Martin Luther, I love this guy. That's my guy. And then there's just like a 5-minute diatribe. It's like when John Galliano went on that like filmed anti-Semitic rants in the 2000s or whatever. That's like that. It's just like Martin Luther caught on voicemail doing shocking anti-Semitic rants. That's what this film was. It was so funny.
I had never heard this about Martin Luther. Had either of you?
No.
I would imagine that if you were to survey like 100 Protestants, I don't think any of them would say that anti-Semitism is like key to the Catholic, or not Catholic, to the church.
Right.
No.
Like, I think it's like
not,
one of those
contemporary,
things.
no.
It's like, feels like one of those things where it's just like we were talking about with the founding of the United States, how like in their personal private things, they were all like overtly Christian.
Right.
Most of them were, but like they made it a point to not, make that like an official part of the founding of the country. Because they wanted to leave all the little puzzles and stuff for everybody. Maybe that's what Calvin was doing too.
Yeah, I mean, certainly contemporary Protestants, for the most part, have no problem with the Jews. But I think the argument of this film is that the anti-Semitism of the time left the churches feeling disconnected, and now the problem with the church is that the Protestant church is so disconnected from the Jewish faith.
Yeah.
And he wants the churches to be merged. I mean, we'll get to this in a little bit, but his prescription is that, well, he says that, that Calvin and Luther all assumed that the Jews would basically fall in line. Like they reformed the church and made it more friendly for the Jews, and they expect the Jews to fall in line.
Right.
But the Jews didn't. And the reason for this is basically that, like, we should have gone to the Jews. We shouldn't have expected the Jews to come to us. Like, that was the fundamental mistake from hundreds of years ago.
Okay. It's so funny how, like, basically all, like, the Christian support for Jews in Israel is, like, ultimately the goal is to eradicate the Jews through, like, not through, like, mass murder, but more just, like, assimilation or in getting them all in one place and making having World War III break out and Jesus comes back and gets rid of all of them.
That's the Jerry Falwell way, is that the number 144,000 that comes up in the Bibles that Jehovah's Witnesses say is how many people get into heaven. Jerry Falwell believed that that is the number of remaining Jews, and they will be the most righteous in the world after, like, World War III or World War IV or whatever. And those are the ones who will bring about this great salvation that they talk about in this movie.
It is the greatest harvest of souls in the history of the world. That's what's at stake. The salvation of the world.
I love it. Just the ultimate goal is always just like the differences are we're going about it the wrong way, getting rid of the Jews.
Yeah.
We've tried it, it's like when you lay down like ant traps and shit, and the ants go for them for a day, but then they come back. And it's like, basically what you got to do is just wipe your counters down.
And hope for the best.
Kill them with kindness.
Kill them with kindness over the best. There is something to be said for the fact that, like, no matter what we've encountered a couple of pieces of media in our run as a show, this one the most blatant, but are about how, Protestants need to appreciate Jews in some capacity. And it does really seem, this is a subtext, this is never stated, but, like, no matter how excited the Protestants are talking about the Jews and how much we have to respect them, you still can't help but wonder, but what do you really want with them? I mean, you do want them to become Christians, right? Because, you do think that Jesus is the way, but basically, this documentary is just arguing we went about it all the wrong way, and this is from hundreds of years ago. So right now the gulf just seems bigger than ever. But it's true. I mean, we remember the Trump prophecy, where basically we learned from that film. That's a movie. If anyone's not familiar who's listening, they basically argued that we needed to support Israel so that literally the apocalypse would happen.
Yes. Yeah.
This movie is not saying that, at least, but it's
not
probably
explicitly.
in there.
It's not saying
I
that.
mean, it's just like why, like, they never explicitly state why we need to, like, support Israel, other than that it's, like, part of God's plan.
Right.
They never say what God's plan is. But
reflects God's light in this world of darkness.
Yeah.
It's not vague.
It's this weird idea that it's like we're in some sort of, like, dark crystal-esque world, and the Jews are some sort of, like, separate species from humans who have, like, some magical key to, like, unlocking the next level of Christianity for Christians.
And they were character designed by Jim Henson.
Yes.
No, that's a really fucking good metaphor for it. That is exactly it. And yeah, there's a respect there, but there is still an acknowledgement. While that is true, while they are enlightened, while they deserve our respect, why we should be kowtowing to them basically as much as possible, they are still Jews and we are still Christians.
They're still different.
They're still different. Like, we're not trying to be them, but we are trying to bring ourselves to them. And I mean, the argument of this movie is straight up like, we need to put all of our energy into kowtowing to Israel.
Yeah. You know what I always thought was funny out here in Beverly Hills? There's the Holocaust Museum. It's called the Museum of Tolerance.
Right.
And I was driving by it one day and I was just stuck in traffic. And I was just like, it's so funny that it's called the Museum of Tolerance, because it's basically saying, like, you don't have to like the Jews. You just have to tolerate them.
I know. That's so crazy.
Feels like that's kind of the message of this movie.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, this movie is like, we need to aggressively tolerate the Jews.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not just like we need to tolerate them and like, well, let them go our way. It's like, we need to be distant and separate from them, but also think about them all the time.
Yeah. Because they're a very weak people who need our support. Otherwise, they're like going to...
And they're weird.
Yeah, they're going to eat like stuff out of the trash on accident if you leave it out. Like, we have to take care of them. There's just this huge othering. I should probably, if anybody's started listening to the podcast now, I myself am Jewish.
Yes.
And there's always this like extreme othering of Jewish people in these like, Zionist, Christian Zionist propaganda. That's just like, it straight up feels like they're just saying like, you are basically like a rodent, but you can like, there's certain ecological benefits for having you around. And we're gonna like totally fuck up our like religious food chain if we exterminate you.
And it
like,
makes
you
sense.
get rid of the Muslims who are a different thing. Like, they're a different problem for us. So like, it's
and it
just
does make
weird
sense too.
Yeah.
It makes sense too to talk about Jewish people as weak in this sense, because that's kind of like this area of Christianity's thought about God too. Like, the way they talk about God is like the way that like Democrats talk about Republicans. We're like, well, we can't do anything because the Republicans. And then like when the Republicans are in office, like, can't do anything because the Republicans. And then when they're out of office, like, can't do anything because the Republicans. You're just like, what's you just can't do anything. You have to like protect them at all costs. Like, just the general talk about God. It's just like, we have to do this and this and this, or else God can't do his thing. And just it's
God
funny
only...
to have this movie to just talk about God in a way where it's like, well, God, how's God's plan gonna be complete without me, Derek Frank?
Yeah, God only has enough strength left over after creating the world to gently guide Calvin to Geneva, and then the rest is up to up to us.
God does not have enough spoons left to carry out the apocalypse.
Best God can do is a God incidents. He can't even like just make it happen.
He can't even make miracles anymore. He only has God incidences.
Maybe that's like, we're in the seventh day. It's God's resting. It took a lot out of her to create the world, and that was millions of years, and now we're in the seventh day.
Listen, God is a woman. God is a woman, and after she's been like at work all day and she comes home, how are you going to ask her if there's food on the table? Like, why don't you pitch in for a shame?
How are you going to ask her to protect the Jews?
Well,
you need to respect what she does around here.
It's true.
Because it's true. People say that being God is the same amount of work as being a CEO at a Fortune 500 company.
Right. Right.
Oh, it's not much work. Everybody's doing the work for them. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, there's a pretty amazing part of this film. This like defines the second act of the movie. It is when he's starting to make the realization that, John Calvin didn't complete the Reformation. And he says, like, we must call, like the verse in Proverbs, When an elder sins, you must call 3 witnesses to testify. Here are the witnesses I shall testify. So he starts building out like a courtroom in his mind. And here are the witnesses he calls. He says he's going to call. Wait, what are you going to say, Julian?
I mean, we are like literally in his mind palace in this movie at this point.
He's won.
Yeah.
I hope everyone listening understands he's the winner. We're trapped in his mind palace making a podcast about it. Like it's his world. We are just annoying little like gnats hovering around his ear.
Yeah. And it's funny because as the movie goes on, it just gets more and more abstract.
Yes.
But yeah, we're at the calling of the witnesses, the 3 interactive paintings.
Yes. And here are the witnesses he calls. He calls in his mind palace the city of Geneva, Switzerland, the modern day city of Geneva, Switzerland. Then 2nd, the Jewish people in general. And 3, the Protestant people. And he experiences testimony. He opens each one kind of like the video game version of like I have no mouth and I must scream. They're like all these different people like in like sitting on these like elevated cages and he's like talking to them. And we should characterize how all of these witnesses answer. So what do the people of Geneva, Switzerland have to say?
Was this before or after the Holocaust people?
This is first. This is before the Holocaust.
Okay, all right. I don't even remember the people of
the Geneva one was just a lot of stock footage of people sitting in banks. It was like, we have such amazing banks. We are Geneva, Switzerland. We have the UN. We have wonderful banks with so much money in them. But there's no spiritual life anymore. No one goes to church.
How are you going to have a bunch of banks when you don't let Jewish people in your country for 500 years? Props to them for pulling that off. That's pretty great.
Figured out a way. Yeah.
It took them way longer than the rest of the world to figure out banks.
Necessity is the mother of invention. That's all I'll say.
Because as they stated in the movie, they didn't allow Jewish people in Geneva for something like 500 years.
Wow.
They were like 300 years before Calvin and then 200 years after he died. And then they finally allowed Jewish people in.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's fucked up.
Yeah. And that was probably for like a Barbra Streisand concert or something. I don't know the timeline. So, okay, testimony from Geneva. The second testimony, the best one.
This one was awesome.
Which I'll let you talk about, Julian, is the testimony of the Jewish people.
So we got all these historical European people in this movie. The only person who's not doing a fucking insane accent is like a Jewish guy in a concentration camp.
Yeah.
It's just a group of people. Well, it's one guy who's just like really like chastising you for allowing the Holocaust to happen, basically. Yeah. Just really hammering home, which I don't know if any of you ever heard from a Jewish person, but there was a little thing called the Holocaust.
I heard about it.
And it was not a good time.
No.
Basically, he's just, staring directly at you, telling you about all the like systematic ethnic cleansings that the Jewish people have faced over the years.
Right.
Which always gets me. It's like everybody focuses on the Holocaust. Like they used to have like mini Holocausts like every 50 years in Europe. Like the pogroms for like hundreds of years.
Wow.
It was just like a ritual that everybody would get together and it's like, why don't people ever talk about that? You know?
No. I don't really know
Jewish
much about
people
that.
need a new PR guy.
History is poorly taught in schools. That is my opinion.
But it was kind of funny the way this is framed because like Mr. Frank literally like asked the camera like, Jewish people, what do you think? And then it cuts to a man dressed in Holocaust like gear.
The striped pajamas.
Like the striped pajamas. And he's basically just like, we're not doing too good.
And then it ends with him outside. It ends with Derek Frank just going, talking to a green screen painting. You're just going, we deeply respect your testimony, Jewish people. And then he walks on to the next one.
Yeah, it's like he's very sincere and passionate, but he talks like like a chess piece that's come to life or something. Like he is really just like a scary guy.
This is someone's father, and they're directing this movie.
Yeah,
it's fucking scary as hell.
This is someone's father, and they have a good relationship.
Yes,
to the point where they work together on art projects. Imagine making a movie with your father.
If your dad one day was just like, I had a dream I've been spending the last 30 years trying to figure out, would you help me make a movie about it?
And you're just like, yes, papa.
He gave me big Klaus Kinski vibes.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like if Klaus Kinski was a Zionist, basically. That's a really good point.
Speaking of fathers.
Well,
it is, yeah,
a
father-daughter Klaus Kinski.
Entertainment relationship.
Yeah, it is interesting with to that point of him just walking away from the painting. It is just all in his mind. Like he's not the center of the world. He is the world, and this is just what he happens to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made his mind. This movie it's using green screen, even like the set dressing of it. It's like paintings floating in a room. You know, it really does. The movie is supposed to be what is happening, the conversation that's happening on the inside of his mind, and he's inviting us in.
It does kind of just deconstruct what he's already showing by the end. Like by the end of it, it's not. He's not even really in a room. It's just like a white space with floating paintings, and then the people talking after that are just like in a cloud. Are they in heaven?
I don't really know.
Like, what is that? Why is that the end point?
Well, I do want to mention the third witness is the Protestants. And I was like, oh, finally, I'm represented in one of these films.
All of the Protestants.
Yeah.
Every
all of the
denomination.
Protestants. Yes. And basically, what this was very interesting to me. What this movie argues through the testimony of the Protestant churches is that Protestantism, as a result of this, basically this botched Reformation, is completely fragmented. There are all these different denominations, and Protestants themselves are not very passionate with God. A lot of their faith is personal. They may identify as Christian, but their faith is personal. They do not attribute it to being a part of a church body. Now, I was like, he's on to something, because, I mean, that's true of me. I don't go to church right now. I don't know what church to go to.
Yeah.
I'm Lutheran. A lot of churches are similar. I would prefer to go to a Lutheran church. There isn't really one right around me. But I'm like, there's a bunch of other churches, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to go to these churches because I don't know. I mean, I just have to check them out, I guess. But like, I don't know off the top of my head, like, will this church be like good? Will they talk about things in the way I want to hear them? You know, he has a point, but he is blaming the centuries-old anti-Semitism of Martin Luther. For now, there's a lack of identity and coherence in the Protestant faith. Obviously, the Protestants now themselves are not anti-Semitic, but the church has suffered. That's what David Frank is saying.
Derek Frank. I wonder if Derek Frank uses
Derek Frank.
I wonder what Bible he uses then, because one of his points is that the gentilification of the Bible has occurred where like Jewish names were changed to non-Jewish names.
Remember, they talk about this in The Unexpected Bar Mitzvah.
Right.
Because at the end of The Unexpected Bar Mitzvah, the guy is talking about like Yeshua. He was like, Yeshua is our prophet. And like The Unexpected Bar Mitzvah goes a different direction, but it's also arguing for a sort of unification of the Jewish and Christian faith. This time they're coming from the side of Jewish people becoming Christian, but being Christian in like a very weird, particular niche way.
It is a good point. I mean, like, you know, the Bible, the whole first half of the Bible is just the Torah.
Yeah.
So
yes, he's saying that. He says in the film, you know, the scriptures are Jewish. Jesus was a Jew. Jesus came through the Jewish people. You know, everyone in Bible times would be observing Jewish customs, Jewish dress, Jewish names, everything about that. And it is kind of weird that all of that's true, and that's like all the people of the Bible, all the customs of the Bible that Protestants, Christians, everybody idolizes are Jewish. All the customs everyone is doing in the entire Bible, Old and New Testament, are Jewish customs. Like, why don't Protestants do all the Jewish holidays and stuff? I kind of don't know. I mean, it must have been this. I mean, all I can believe is Derek Frank. He identified a reason. I mean, he's telling us.
Yeah.
So maybe he's right.
The way that he was conveying this information, though, kind of gave me the vibe of like when Dinesh D'Souza figured out that like Democrats used to be like pro-slavery.
Yes.
Like
very gotcha.
150 years ago. And it was like, which, you know, not that long ago, but still, it'd be hard to argue that like that the Democrats are like the pro-slavery party.
Right. Yeah, it's just like
nowadays.
The name, right. Just because the name of something changed, you're like, but now you're a Democrat. Does that mean you like slavery?
Exactly.
It's like, well, that's not
it
how
felt
it
very
works.
much like somebody just learned. The guy just learned that Jesus was Jewish, and is like wants to tell everybody.
I was like, so you're Jewish?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I guess. You know what? I kind of want to see if I can find my notes about the unexpected bar mitzvah, because like he offered a particular church, like at the end,
right?
It was kind of like I think it was a Jews for Jesus thing in this,
basically.
Yeah.
Was
Which
it
is
Assembly of God?
Yeah.
Assembly. I have it written in my notes. Stay away from Assembly of God, but I think that was written from the perspective of
you
like,
seem cool.
What
Don't
they
come
were
to Assembly of God tomorrow.
I think that was from the perspective of like what the people in the film were saying.
Right. Yeah.
No, they're. I don't know.
But again, in the unexpected bar mitzvah, it's all about incorporating the Jewish people into Christianity.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like converting Christians to like a weird mishmash of Judaism and Christianity in an effort to sort of like make Christianity Jew. It's like when people are like, say, like register as like a Republican or a Democrat, not as an independent, so you can vote in the primaries.
That's
or whatever.
a good analogy.
Register as a Jew so you can bring them to Jesus.
Yes.
There you go.
But
yeah,
it's
and
so
in the
funny.
unexpected bar mitzvah too, they make it clear that the main Jewish dad in that is wrong, just his heart's in the right place.
Yeah, we respect him because he's a Jew.
Yeah.
But he is extremely wrong. He's unwilling. He's too proud to hear the story of Yeshua, the real name of Jesus, by the way.
And his son speaking in tongues.
Right. But it is cool that I love these Christian movies that basically the argument of them, if you watch them and really take what they say to heart, is that you have to practice a type of Christianity that is so niche and specific that like you're only going to find 1,000 people in the entire world who like it. Like it's just like the more you subdivide and nitpick about things, like you're like, okay, so you're telling me I need to go to a Christian church that celebrates Jewish holidays and reads a Bible that calls them, you know, like Yeshua and like blah, blah. It's like, listen, I get what you're saying. Like, I think you have a decent historical critique of how the religion evolves, but it's like,
again, it's like the constitutional, like fundamentalists or literalists or whatever. Just like total lack of understanding of how like history changes, like time changes cultures and things. Almost like, I hate to say it, but maybe religion is not some like hard and fast set of rules that you should live by.
Maybe it evolves.
It seems like
with the
things
times.
have changed over thousands of years.
It evolves with the times, and
don't work on Saturdays or you're not getting raptured. That's my takeaway from this year.
I'm cool with that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's one that's Boys Bible Study approved that we've learned from our Seventh-day Adventists and also Jehovah's Witness friends. But yeah, I mean, well, these are the things like that. You know, I understand people have sometimes even pretty valid historical critiques, even if they interpret them in kind of wacky ways. But the fact that a lot of these people don't understand, like, you know, Derek Frank or many of these people, most people don't want to spend every waking moment thinking about the Bible or like in the case of the wall builders, the Constitution of the United States of America. Like I'm not starting my day thinking like, am I thinking about the Constitution correctly? Do I need to pill my way of thinking so I can be a better constitutional American?
Yeah.
Or in this case, it's like, should I be celebrating Christmas or should I be celebrating like Hanukkah?
Yeah.
Even though I'm a Christian. And I will tell the Jews they're wrong, because religion is about community. So, okay, I want to be with other Christians, but I want to celebrate all the Jewish holidays. So I just want to be seen as fucking weird by both people.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
It's also funny how like with the Calvinists, like Calvinism and like Lutheranism, it's like like, oh, we need to go back to a specific time when they really nailed this like ever evolving belief system. Or like with the Constitution, it's like, it's based on stuff that's before it.
Right.
It's like, I don't know how to phrase this, but it's like you're just completely ignoring like all of the history that came before that point, because you're just like, they nailed it right in that one moment. It was perfect.
Right.
Everything before and after has been fucked up. Yeah, exactly.
Scott thinks they just fell out of a coconut tree.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about that for this movie specifically. It was like, okay, so at some point in the movie, it was like, all Jews go to heaven. I felt like that's what he was saying. Like, if you're a Jew, you're saved. The end. And then I was thinking like, okay, and then you can also be saved through Christianity. I was like, what happened to everybody before Abraham's firstborn children?
Exactly. Well, they were like the first people, weren't they?
No. That's Adam and Eve.
Yeah, but he was... Oh, yeah, and you're right.
Yeah,
There's Cain and Abel.
Yeah, there was
So
definitely
many
people in
people.
between. I don't know.
How did Noah get to heaven?
Well, it's
Did
like,
he?
when you buy the iPhone, it's 15 and then they release the 16 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
How?
You just
What
you're
happened?
never going back
what
to the
happens
15.
to those people?
They
Maybe you do need to pay
unfortunately-
indulgences to get them out of purgatory.
Yeah. Unfortunately, part of God's plan was to not let anyone into heaven until humans figured out the correct way to get in.
Yeah, they had to unlock it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they ate the apple.
Because of the apple.
Right.
Of the apple.
Yeah.
Yes, they need to unlock it with a key.
A literal key.
At the end of this film,
Given to you by the architect from The Matrix Reloaded.
if like the architect from the Matrix was gay and wanted to kill you.
Yeah.
There's just a scene at the end where he's like, will you take the key? And then the key flashes red and his eyes flash red and he like holds the key out to you. It's so scary. I love the part where he figures out his own 5 theses.
Yes.
Which he nails to the wall, literally, which we could read. They're quite boring. We could read them. But
They're really boring.
They're really boring. To do that, he finally strips off his like black Calvinist robe and makes a big show, like literally like a RuPaul's Drag Race contestant.
Yeah.
He takes off his robe, drops it to the floor to reveal like a tight white dress shirt and these like nice pants. And I was like,
He's wearing like a
he's
Caucasian
stashed.
suit
Yes,
without the
yeah.
jacket. It's crazy. It's just the same color as his skin tone. He got the Caucasian fit.
He really did. I'm like, he thinks he's like boots the house down, like he's just fucking like he's got a production. Like he's like taking off the outfit and revealing the one underneath, sitting down so he can write his 5 theses, which are about how he's completing Luther's Reformation by adding to the 95 theses, which honestly is kind of a weird number to stop at. Like, why not just write 5 more, make it 100? That's what he's doing.
This is where it gets like super uber coded.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to reveal to you what I've been working on for the past 30 years since I had this dream. And it's literally like 5 sentences. And they're like, be nice to the Jewish people. be supportive of the Jewish people. It's like, dude, it took you 30 years to come up with this.
I'll read one of them because it's very the truth about God's ongoing purposes for the nation of Israel needs to stand alongside his purposes for the church.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Just support Israel, I guess.
Just say support Israel.
This is what he spent his life trying to figure out how to put to words. And he puts it in such a way that, like, he needs, like, a fucking translator. He needs an English translator to understand what his fucking...
He wrote it by typing the word "the" and then tapping on his predictive text. But he just talked about Israel so much that Israel was, like, the fourth word that came up. Yeah. He like literally wrote it like that. It's like, what are you talking about? I have in my notes. He says its destiny hinges on it being grafted into Israel, and then he sits on an evil chair after disrobing because he sits on like a weird white like expensive IKEA chair that has like devil horns on it. Like, it's just so cunty. It's crazy.
What were the other three? Or was that
there were many. I mean, I'll read them.
They're just so fucking like bland.
It is a lie that the church replaced Israel in God's purposes.
Who said that?
Yeah, who said that?
Double parentheses, not triple parentheses. 2, the failure to expose this ancient deception distorted the gospel of the Reformation.
Okay.
3, this deception continues to wound both the church and the Jewish people.
This is like one of those writing assignments where you'd like, it's like you didn't quite understand the assignment. You were supposed to come up with 5 theses. What you're doing is you're saying one thesis, and each following thesis is just adding on to the first one.
Right. Yeah, they all require the first one to make sense. They're like, this should be called like 1A, 1B, 1C.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not, these are not good theses. Sir, these are not good theses.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on writing theses. I will admit it's been a while since I wrote one, but this is not it.
No, not at all.
You don't think these theses will go viral?
No, I have yet to see them go viral. This film has like 9,000 views on YouTube.
And it was uploaded, what, like 14 years ago, probably?
500 years ago.
2014.
Thanks to the advent of the YouTube press, he's gone viral.
But, maybe it was not a God incidence that we found this film now at a time when Israel needs us more than ever.
It's true. It really made me think... Like, how does anybody, like, who would walk away from this movie being like, you know what, he was right. The scary British man, like, talking sternly to me for an hour straight really made me think. Considering I couldn't even tell what the fuck he was talking about most of the time. And for, like, the first half, I was like, is this supposed to be, like, a pro-Israel or an anti-Israel movie? Somewhere around, like, 10 minutes into the just nonstop anti-Semitic slurs being thrown directly to me.
Just looking at
by
you.
Hollywood actors.
Yeah.
Kevin Sorbo looking at you in the eyes and going, the Jews are dogs. And you're like, what?
And I was
I
like,
never said that.
It went on for so long that I was like, is this about like hating Jewish people?
Like John Schneider isn't there? Like, would you be that surprised if...
How did they get all these people?
Well,
it was really impressive. There must have been some kind of fucking convention in town, and
right,
they just got him in for like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
pick your fucking outfit out of the closet and come stand in front of the green
they could have
screen.
filmed this whole thing in 2 days, like one day for all the people who aren't Derek Frank, and one day of just Derek Frank.
They literally did a Highland Park TV skit.
Yeah.
With our favorite Christian film actors.
Incredible. Get this guy on Punishment Uno. Be like, call him up. Be like, look, I'm Jewish. I saw your movie. It really spoke to me. Will you please be locked in a cube with me for 24 hours?
It would really show a lot of tolerance to the Jewish people if you would spend 24 hours locked in a cube with me.
Hey, when this episode comes out, you'll be able to tune in.
Yes.
You can see if Derek shows.
If he answered our invite. Yes.
Yeah.
Everyone listening, time to check out the Punishment Uno live stream.
Yeah. Put it on while you listen to the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? When this drops, you too will be on the panel.
Yes.
So ittle be like a live
that's
episode.
right.
Yeah, it'll be probably about the same time. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Kick.com/HLPTV.
Kick.com/HLPTV. Julian's very exciting torture experiment where several of his friends will be locked in a cube and you can pay to punish them.
Yeah.
And we're going to say that this is some sort of analog for grafting the Christian and Jewish churches together.
Yes. There will
this
be
is for
Christians
unification.
and Jews inside the cube.
Yes. So this is about unification of the church.
Yeah.
This is Julian's interpretation of what we should do after watching this movie. So
Yeah.
if you say it's wrong, you're an anti-Semite.
What it's basically it's kind of like one of those middle ground episodes, except we're just like locking them in a cube and let them sort it out.
Yeah.
When you come out, 24 hours, you'll be friends.
You'll be friends. So
you're either both going to be dead or you're going to be friends.
Anything else to say about Let the Lion Roar?
Towards the end, at the very end, there's a series of people in the sky who are also people we don't know. I assume they're friends of Derek Frank, who just are kind of like getting the point home.
They spent so much time on all of this like backgrounds and special effects and stuff and did not think to include a single lower third in any of this film. You have no idea who anyone is.
No. Yeah, that would have been helpful at many points.
Yeah, there's just people in the sky who remind you again that, the Protestant church needs to unify, needs to be grafted into the Jewish church. Ending with Christian pseudo-celebrity Sid Roth.
Yeah.
The man with 100 teeth.
Yeah. It was a miracle.
He was really scary. He straight up, when his head started twitching, I thought his like jaw was going to unhinge.
Well, he's like lit from underneath like a flashlight when you're telling a scary story at a sleepover.
He looked like a fucking Junji Ito character.
Yeah, and he's like, he's again lit from underneath and saying things like, anti-Semitism is the scourge of Protestantism. It's very scary. It's all very scary. Derek Frank is so frightening to behold.
Was Sid Roth the one, too, who said God will restore the house of David in the last days and then quickly says, and of course that means Israel? I was kind of thinking like maybe it just means David's house.
Have you ever thought that it was just David's house?
You just need to rebuild his house. Fix it up.
Well,
then we're done.
The Masons have been building Solomon's temple this whole time. We should have just been building David's house. They got it all wrong. Listen, a little unrelated, but I do want to say I've been thinking about this a lot. I've been tweeting about it to very little good reception. No one likes this. But the fact is we have to, for the same reasons that we have to support Israel, we must rally behind the Mr. Beast presidency.
Oh, yeah.
I've been thinking about it constantly. I want Mr. Beast to be president. He wants to run. He's already tweeted that he will run in the future.
All right.
He's all but confirms that he's going to run. He said
Beast.
things. Yes, and I want this to happen. We've watched so many apocalypse films about a man who does miracles, who everyone on earth loves, who is the great beast, will become the president. And
whoa,
that's all. Like all he does. There's just a million Mr. Beast videos where it's like he restores sight to 100 blind people.
Oh my god!
Or he digs like 1 million wells in Africa. Or like recently there was a headline that he like removed 30 million pounds of trash from the ocean.
Oh,
what?
God.
Yes, and like he is tweeting things like, when I will be president, my cabinet will be made up of people from all political parties. He's like telling all these things. I'm like, yes, king.
This is it.
Dude, Mr. Beast is going to become president. He's going to win in the biggest landslide in American history. And then he's going to be like, by the way, if everyone would just put this chip in their body,
the Beast chip.
It's going to be so,
wow.
I'm voting. I'm literally going to go door to door campaigning for him.
Yeah.
Like as a conservative Christian, I need this to happen. I implore our conservative Christian listeners to get behind Mr. Beast.
And he announces his candidacy, and God incidentally, I say, fellas, I've had a change of heart. It's expensive to live out here.
Yeah.
I just signed a lease for a place in Israel.
Yep.
I'll see you guys later. You'll know.
We'll know.
You'll know.
Wow. It's happening. Like, I've always been one of those people that's like, every civilization thought they were living in the end times. Now there is legitimately a man who everyone loves, the most popular man on earth, whose name is Mr. Beast, and he's going to be the president.
It's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening. You're going to be the what's the left behind, the cruelty squad or the God squad?
Yeah, or something like that. I like the cruelty squad.
Yeah.
The firing squad.
Yeah,
you're right.
The pod squad.
Yeah, like we are going to be don't or do get left behind. I'm doing the thing where I think you think I'm the devout Christian who you think is not going to get left behind, but then I am. Because
you're left to wonder why.
The problem is, and I've been considering this, the problem is when Mr. Beast says to everyone, I need you to take my mark, I'm going to have to take it. Because it's so funny that it's actually happening.
Well, we also learned in that one movie that you don't testify enough against homosexuality.
Exactly.
In fact, you do the opposite.
I know. I call myself a Christian.
That might be a bigger reason why you're going to be left behind.
I mean, it'll happen, but like the problem is the Mr. Beast presidency made me realize this is something I always thought about. Well, of course I will not take the mark.
Yeah.
But I just realized if a president named Mr. Beast tells me to take the mark, I will have no choice but to say, of course. You only get one chance to take the mark.
Yeah.
I'm voting for Jimmy.
I'm voting for Jimmy. I'm voting Beast.
Wow.
Vote Beast.
So that's something I wanted to get off my chest.
Feastables for all.
A feastable in every pot.
Feastable in every pot.
Should we rate this film?
Voting for the passing legislation will just be all of the senators in cubes,
in punishment cubes,
and see who the last person to leave their cube gets to
I locked one person
bill.
from every state in a cube to decide the laws of this country. He's gonna do it. He's gonna win.
That's crazy.
I'll vote for it.
There's a lot of new stuff from this episode. This whole new finishing of the Reformation.
Yeah.
Mr. Beast is the Beast.
There are podcasts where there are episodes where years happen, and there's episodes where days happen, and then there's episodes where years happen.
Exactly.
This is one of those.
It really is.
So true.
What do we think, though? What is the official Boys Bible Study rating of Let the Lion Roar? Which that doesn't seem like it should be the title of this movie, but it is.
Again, another nonsensical fucking thing.
Yeah.
Like when he literally was just suddenly decided to use the metaphor of a key to unlock the lion roaring. And it's a literal key. And it unlocks the lion roaring, which it means to support Israel. What the fuck does this? Get your shit straight, dude. I know, this movie felt like the fuck. Remember the Time Cube website? That was just the guy.
Yes.
That's what this was, but for Zionism. The Zion Cube. I'm going to give it 500 out of 500 years without a Jew. We'll finally get some peace and quiet around here.
Whew. I am going to give this 7 out of 7 time periods that it took God to make the earth the seventh that he's resting in. I love your new theory, Julian, that we are simply in the seventh one where God's resting. Makes so much sense.
I think that's genius.
Great movie. Really, honestly, kind of next level as far as like, this is my vision. Like I've never felt more just like, yeah, I guess this is the inside of your head.
Yeah.
Great
Legitimately stuff. A simulation of the inside of Derek Frank's head. As for me, I'm going to have to give this film 5 out of 5 brand new theses. The best theses of all time. I thought this film was genius. I'm just looking through the notes I took out of context. I wrote, this evil man loves the Jews so much. Because that's like basically what this film is about. It's about a guy who's really passionate about loving the Jews. And it just so happens that he is like one of the most evil looking, sounding, and seeming mans of all time. And he's a weeb for the Jews. And, he made a movie about it. And I thought it was going to be about John Calvin, but it wasn't. And that's okay. That's valid.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like what we came for, we still got, which was Kevin Sorbo looking ridiculous as Calvin.
Yes.
It made me smile every time he popped up on screen. It was like a revelation.
Did not disappoint. I was worried he was only going to be in this for like a couple minutes, but
it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. Overall, just a fantastic film.
It was pretty good.
An experience unlike any I've had in recent memory.
I would completely agree, and we heartily recommend watching this film on YouTube. Search for Derek Frank or Vanessa Frank, Let the Lion Roar. And, we can't thank you enough, our beautiful listeners, the chosen people, who we make these episodes for. So thank you so much for supporting us and listening. Shout outs to our patron saints at the $20 tier, the great reformers, Nicole, Marissa, Jeff, Kara, and Rhett. Thank you so much. Also, our outro music is Oh My God by Mary. So from all of us here at Boys Bible Study, myself, Ash, my co-hosts, Scott and Julian, we would like to say, peace be with you.
And also with you.
I like the weird German accent that Martin Luther had. It was really funny, too. It was so good.
They, the Jews, are blood brothers of our Lord. If it were proper to boast of flesh and blood, the Jews belong to Christ more than we. I beg, therefore, my dear Pappus, if you become tired of abusing me as a heretic, that you begin to revile me as a Jew.
However, the Jews did not convert as Luther expected.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me. Every day